How's it going, guys? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Requiem for Innocence, the Fata Morgana story. I mean, we knew it was going to be sad and depressing, right? But now we're following Morgana, and so of course it's going to be just horrifically, heart-wrenchingly terrible. So we're already really far along with her story, but I do remember she has quite a lot of interaction and bonding that she makes with, gosh darn it. I'm kicking myself because I haven't looked it up, but, like, I know his face, and his sister's name's Nellie, but I can't remember the name of the kid who, like, befriends her here. So that's what we're going to be seeing here, obviously, because we're seeing the 4 years have passed since she became, like, the witch. And so that's lining up with the time when she eventually is taken. So we're going to start, wait, is it Mell? It might be Mell. Anyway, we're going to be seeing her interaction with him, and I don't know how in depth it's going to end up going. We know they spent a lot of time together, but we also know that by the time we got to that part in Fata Morgana, we were seeing mostly just highlights. So I don't really know what we're going to really see here, but let's just jump into it and see how it goes, because we're going to watch her almost have another friend. And then that friend betrays her. Yay! It's gonna be great. I'm already having a kind of a depressing day, so it's all just gonna get better from here, so let's just jump in. Nearly 4 years had passed since I'd assumed the role of the lakeside witch. My 16th birthday was approaching, but my age was perhaps the only thing I had in common with any ordinary teenager girl. Although if I had grown up like any other girl, having spent my childhood as a saint before being held captive by a lord and made to witness countless people's deaths, would probably mean there was something deeply wrong with me. By that point, a terrible cynicism had taken root in my heart. I had built high walls around myself, keeping my contact with the outside world as terse and pragmatic as possible. With each passing day, my voice grew more monotonous, my interactions following a well-rehearsed script. My customers didn't make any attempt to force their way into the shell either. I'd begun to suspect they might think me not a witch by trade, but that I had actually formed a pact with the devil and worked his dark magic. No one said as much, but I could sense what seemed to be fear in their voices when they came to me. On the other hand, I never had anyone else try to force themselves into the cottage like the man 4 years earlier, so I would say I had a rather peaceful life. If you consider a life where no one wanted anything to do with you peaceful, that is. I had also come to learn a fair bit about herbology. I could now make my own medicines, rather than just making do with what was already here when I moved in. Although a fair bit still amounted to almost nothing when compared to what my predecessor was capable of. Nonetheless, I had a relatively solid grasp on what herbs to use to treat different symptoms. Enough to formally assume the name of the lakeside witch, at least. And so time flowed on, uneventful and quiet. Until one day, when a young man showed up at my door. Here we go. Excuse me, is anyone home? I knew right away that it was a new customer. No one who would have traded with me before bothered with such pleasantries anymore. They wanted the process to be quick and frictionless, and I preferred it that way as well. Who's there? When I responded from behind the door, he seemed to be taken aback. After several moments with no answer, I tensed up slightly and repeated the question. My sister has fallen very ill, and she desperately needs medicine. He has a very pretty voice. I was told that the person who lives here is a skilled herbalist. Could I please get something to treat her? What are her symptoms? She's got an extremely high fever that won't come down. She has no appetite, she's only drinking water, and she can't get out of bed. Everyone always seems to be looking for medicine for themselves. I hadn't had a customer like him in some time now. We're going to want to lower her fever first. After that, get her on a nutritious diet. I'm going to give you 2 medications. Give her the first one while fever's high, and the second after it comes down. Thank you very much. When was the last time someone thanked me? Here's your medicine. It's powdered, so mix it with some water and have your sister drink it. Are you not going to open the door any wider? Is that necessary? No, sorry. Just a second. Let me get you your money. Ah, I take supplies for my services, not money. Oh, I didn't realize. I'm sorry. This is all I have on me today. Would you maybe be willing to accept this as payment today? Very well. Is that a gold coin? Those herbs aren't worth nearly this much. Just who is this man? And what on earth is he doing here at a witch's cottage? In any other situation, I would have been tempted to look. What if he saw me? What if he think me disgusting, ridiculed me like everyone else? It didn't hurt. It didn't hurt knowing what people thought of me, but it was hardly pleasant hearing it vocalized either. And what if he decided to do something in that moment I dropped my guard? He could force the door open and have his way with me. He doesn't seem like that kind of man, though. Trust was about the furthest thing in my mind when interacting with people these days. I always remained on high alert, keeping a safe distance from everyone, no matter how good they appeared on the surface. But for some reason, I felt strangely comfortable in this young man's presence. At the time, I couldn't have explained why, but in retrospect, I imagine it was largely a result of his upbringing. He spoke in a clear, well-enunciated voice. He had a polite, friendly air about him, which I could feel even through the door. It wasn't the sort of well-mannered you could fake with a bit of practice, nor the sort you encountered out in the middle of nowhere. Curiosity took hold of me. I had to know what he looked like. I wasn't going to throw the door open, of course. I had no intention of inviting him in either. I just wanted to get a little peek at him through the crack in the door. So I opened it ever so slightly wider than usual when I reached out to take his payment. Oh no, he saw me. Wow, I didn't think he'd be so young. I guessed you were a little older. What? Thank you for doing business with me. And I'm sorry for not coming properly prepared. If I need any more, I'll be sure to bring supplies next time. All right. Again, I really appreciate it. Have a nice day. You too. He saw my face, and he wasn't disgusted. He actually smiled. I was so caught off guard I thought that for a second my face might healed. So I ran over to the water basin and a glimmer of hope in my heart gazed at him in my reflection. But the face looking back at me was the same as always, a grotesque, unsightly, patchy mess. Part of me was disappointed, but more than anything I was flabbergasted by what had just happened. How could he smile at the sight of this face? For a split second, my mind slipped back in time 4 years. The man who had applied ointment to my face, he had never seemed disturbed by my appearance either. Not long afterward, the young man called upon my cottage again. He said that the medicine had briefly relieved his sister's symptoms, but that it had failed to actually cure what ailed her. Herbal medicine required patience and persistence before its effects manifested. I informed him, to which he responded with a sad smile. He was a handsome young man, not far from what I imagined from his voice, and the smile suited him quite well. There was a distinct elegance emanating from him. A distinct elegance. Ragged clothes aside, he was about how I envisioned a fairy tale prince might look, though I knew quite well that those only existed in fiction. Real nobles were terrible, miserable, reprehensible people. After a few visits, we started having little conversations outside of our business transactions. He told me his name, Mell. It was Mell! It did come back to me eventually. As well as his sisters, Nellie. I told him of mine. Mell was 17, only a year older than me. Then one day, he invited me outside for a walk. It's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. You've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we take a little walk around the shoreline? I remember this. I remember this moment so well. I was going to turn him down, but my mouth seemed to disagree with my mind, and the next thing I knew, I was taking a walk with someone for the first time in years. Although with might be somewhat of a stretch, I kept a safe distance from him as we walked. Mell seemed disappointed with my unwillingness to get any closer, but I couldn't bring myself to trust him that much yet. Nonetheless, it was a momentous enough occasion that I felt justified describing it as such. I'm sure I made him uncomfortable on numerous occasions during our walks. To say I acted disagreeably would be an understatement. At any time he closed the gap between us, I stepped a little further away. Every response I gave was curt, and I repeatedly shot him down whenever he started getting wistful and was sentimental. The Morgana of 4 years prior might have been a little softer with him, a little more human. Maybe she would have given him a little smile or a pout instead. But that girl was long gone. I despised the humanity that had once started taking root in me, and I endeavored to be something different again. In one instant, I heard a robin chirping and said, "If I had wings like a bird, maybe I could be free too." To which I responded, "There is not a single creature living in the world that is free." What? Birds regularly get shot down by hunters or preyed on by larger birds. The idea that they are free is nothing more than a more short-sighted delusion. Sorry, I guess. No, I should be apologizing. I wasn't trying to attack you. I simply lack the ability to properly empathize with others. I do not understand people. So please, if I say anything that upsets you or makes you uncomfortable, don't assume that was my intention. Sure. Maybe you're hiding it, or maybe you just don't know it yet, but I think you've got more empathy than you're letting on. Surely you can't say nothing affects you at all. You are human. At one point that was true, though it was perhaps somewhat difficult for others to see. I felt great beauty in the world when I knelt before the gravestones, but such sentiments have long since been lost to me. Sorry, you don't have to be so closed off. I might not be able to do much for you, but I do want to get to know you better, and I want to understand you. So if you ever feel like talking about yourself, just know that you've got an eager pair of ears here. Okay? If there were ever someone who could understand me, if there were ever someone who could understand what I am now, who could empathize with me, who could have been through trials as great as mine, they would not be human. What do you mean? That you would need to be far removed from any idea of humanity to have a chance at understanding me. Regardless, I do appreciate your kind words. Sure. So, out of curiosity, do you have anyone, really important to you in your life? Not at the moment. Does that mean you used to? I'd love to hear about them, if you don't mind. They're all long dead. 4 years ago, something unpleasant occurred, and as a result of that, I was forced to part ways with the people who taught me that humans had the capability for kindness. Oh, I'm sorry. Well then, if your sister's condition worsens again, come see me. Farewell. Hey, maybe we could walk a little slower next time, so we have more time to talk? I want to get to know you better. I'll consider it. Alright. So long. Bye. See you soon. I forgot. Like, what sucks is, like, Mell really was, like, falling for her. I don't know. It kind of was dancing on the edge of whether or not he was actually, like, walking down the romantic interest path at all, but, like, at least he wanted to understand her as a friend, because he felt like an outsider, because remember, he was exiled nobility. So, even in the community he was around, everyone treated him at, like arm's length, because A, he was technically noble, and so if he attained status again, he could punish them if they did stuff that cross him. But they also knew that he'd been ostracized from his family, and thus they didn't want to associate with him unless they incurred the wrath of those who had sent him out here. And so, like, he also felt very alienated and isolated. And so he saw Morgana as just another person who he was similar to. That he saw similarities between them. And he wanted to have a friend, somebody who seemed genuine and, like, wasn't, like, talking behind their back or behind, like cupped hands and such. But unfortunately, her distance worked too well. I was conscious of how cold and distant I was being toward him, but I had no interest in changing anything. Not that I ever even knew how to anymore. I had known particularly well how to choose the right words, the proper way to act in various circumstances. But what little knowledge I had possessed, I'd long since lost. I assume after the things I'd said to him, Mell would never ask me on another walk again. But I was wrong. He did the very next time he came for medicine, and every time after that as well. Hey, so I was thinking, I bet you'd make a really good singer if you wanted to. A singer? Yeah, you've got this really pretty voice. I think it'd be nice if you tried using it to sing. I'm sorry, that's not my place to tell you what to do. You hardly talk. Why would I think you'd want to sing? I'm glad we're on the same page. Never again. Sorry about that, really. Anyway, I wonder who first came up with the idea to sing. You could brighten someone's day or sour their mood with just the sound of your voice. Like, kind of amazing, don't you think? It's almost like magic. Oh, and there are battle songs, too, for getting soldiers fired up for combat. Battle. Now there's a word I never expected to hear from you. I mean, I am a guy. I admire anyone who has the strength to go to battle. I could never, ever do it myself, though. Same. The sight of blood makes me sick, and I barely know which end of a sword you're supposed to grab. You're a noble, aren't you? What need do you have for knowing how to use a sword? That's what I used to think too. But now I think I should have gone training. I may not have been a soldier, but I needed to be strong. I could have avoided so much if I was. And Nellie wouldn't have to live in a rundown shack in the middle of nowhere. As I recall, he said once that he was forced from his house after a dispute over who the rightful heir was. High society sounds like endless fun. I'm sorry. I'm sure you don't care about any of this. No, you're fine. I'm the one who asked. Thanks. I want you to know, I really do appreciate it. It's nice just to be able to talk about this stuff to someone. You're naturally sociable. I'm sure you could find plenty of other people willing to listen. I don't get into town much, not even to run errands. I'm still kind of an outsider. You're my only friend right now. I hope that wasn't too presumptuous of me. Call me whatever you like. Oh, thank goodness. We should do this more often, really. Talk more, get to know each other better, become better friends. To what end? No end, just, having friends is better than being alone. That's all. I see. I'll be heading back now. See you again. Yeah, see you soon, Morgana. Man, it makes a lot more sense now how flabbergasted and distant she was. I mean, at the time, I kind of got it, but like now, having a full understanding of her background, it's like, of course she wasn't going to just be friends. Little by little, his words were getting closer to reaching the old me. Not enough to provoke an actual response, of course, but that wasn't his fault. I'd locked myself up too deeply. I no longer knew how to express emotions, most especially those that resulted from human warmth. However, I had regained enough of something to feel a sort of nostalgia in my interactions with Mell, and I thought perhaps with enough time, I could go back to who I'd been 4 years prior. But shortly thereafter, he threw all that into the wind with a single utterance. I'll take anything at this point to make her better. I'll even take a miracle if I could get one. He appeared exhausted that day, much more than usual. His sister's condition had begun to worsen again. That one muttered word set off a spark in my mind. It sent me back in time, well beyond what I was taught humanity 40 years ago, to my very origin. I was the daughter of God. My blood had healing properties. And the instant I remembered that, there was only one course of action I could take. Without a moment's hesitation, I informed him that miracles did exist, that I had been born a saint, and that my blood had miraculous powers. That after leaving the village of my birth, my power had only ever been misused. First by a lord, then his sick banquets, then by letting me lay idle so long. Now was the time for me to correct that. He was a kind-hearted young man who loved his sister, who deserved this blessing more than them. I told him everything. At first he was surprised, but never once did he accuse me of lying. He listened carefully and intently, taking in every word. And when I was finished, he said he believed me. He said he would entrust his sister's care to me. Mell's sister slept upon a simple bed. There she is. She was a sweet little girl who looked like she would have been quite spirited if not for her ailment. Both she and her brother had beautiful flaxen hair. They looked as if they had both been yanked from a painting. Seeing them there, I wanted to do everything I could to help them, to ensure their happiness. And I knew I had the ability to do so. No longer would I be the one receiving others' charity. I could be the one giving it again. And so I made a new cut on my mostly healed arm. And for the briefest of moments, a flash of him applying ointment appeared in my mind, but I quickly cast it off. The flaxen-haired girl showed signs of recovering as a result of my miracle. The boy came to my cottage overjoyed to thank me. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like, for once, I had actually saved someone's life. I had finally been able to use my gift to help someone truly good. After the miracle, though, he stopped referring to me as his friend. Understandably so. No one could think of themselves as equal to someone who had performed miracles. Awe, fear, reverence, they were all feelings that came from the same place. An inability to think of me as a human who had experienced the world the same way he did. He saw me as abnormal. I had always been fine with that. It was how I was supposed to be. Being different was what I'd always wanted, and in some way, it was what had kept me going. So seeing him put more and more distance between us shouldn't have bothered me in the slightest. But I continued to offer his sister my blood. No matter how distant he grew, eventually he stopped inviting me on walks. But that didn't matter. I would serve my duty and perform miracles regardless. He would simply knock on my cottage door and say, my sister's fallen ill again. Would you come perform another miracle? I could hear the apprehension in his voice. No longer did he show me his gentle smile. No longer did we listen to the birds singing together. No longer was I being the cold and distant. Was I the one being cold and distant? And no longer did he say, see you again when we parted ways. Back in the village, when everyone feared and revered me as a saint, it filled me with a childish sense of superiority. But there was no superiority now. Only a prickling in the soft shell of my heart. I was no longer the child I had once been. I had changed. I had learned what warmth felt like. My memories of that time were vague and ethereal, but the feelings they had created lived on deep within me. For a time, I had felt a warm familiarity around Mell, which only made me yearn for him to treat me that way again. I wanted to be able to open up to someone once more, though I never said as much out loud. And here it comes. There it is. This is it. This is the day I know it. Oh, it's... Okay. Gloomy day after gloomy day passed, and then I received a new visitor. I asked them their business from behind the door, but they hesitated for a few moments before responding. My instincts told me that whoever it wasn't the noble boy. So I waited, perplexed and slightly on edge, for them to say something. And when they finally did, I was left aghast at what I heard. Are you the witch with the miracle blood? Why did he sound like a man who had slaughtered the slaves in the carriage, laughing all the while? What was he doing at my cottage? I thought he had wandered off somewhere, never to be seen again. I thought he was out of my life for good. Why? Why did he call me a witch? And how did he know my blood had powers? Had Mell told him? Or maybe his talkative little sister had gone running around blabbing about it? I should have been clearer with them, made absolutely certain they knew to keep their mouths shut. Please leave. It took all my strength to get those two words out with my voice shaking. I could hear the screams of 4 years ago echoing in my mind. I could see the limbs flying, the blood pooling at my feet. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel the pulsing in my ears. Please stay away from my home. After all that time I'd spent forgetting about everything, closing myself off, finally finding peace, why did the monster who reminded me so much of senseless violence and death have to come back into the world? I never wanted to go through anything like that again. I am in need of your blood. Could you not spare a little? I have nothing to spare for a man like you.
My blood is only for the sick and needy. So please, go away. Stay away from me. I'm begging you. Get away from this place! You're a murderer. I want nothing to do with you. So please, just go away.
As you say.
Huh. Is he gone? Oh, thank heavens. Oh, my eyes feel like they're burning. No, Morgana, you have to be strong. You cannot let this get to you. Be strong. You have nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. Huh. Oh, stop. Bite it back.
She's gonna be sick. Okay. Yep, she's just having a psychotic break. I swore never to cry again. But the moment fear released its grip on me, everything that built up came pouring out in a hot stream. Tears soaked my face. I wiped and still my hands came back wet. With each passing second, I felt myself reverting to an ordinary, helpless little girl. No, that was what I'd always been. My whole life I'd just been putting on airs, when in reality I wasn't even strong enough to withstand a little fright. Even with the Horde man gone, I couldn't rest easy. I couldn't be sure if he was gone for good. Maybe he was just waiting for the more opportune moment to target me again. The following day, I took a brief walk with the noble boy, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to him about what had happened. With how much distance he was keeping between us, I doubted he would be willing to do anything to help. For 3 days, 3 nights, I shook in terror, thinking, considering, speculating, wondering, hardly getting a wink of sleep. I was too anxious to sit still, and so I paced in circles around my chair by the fireplace.
It's too soon to be sure I'm safe. Can't go outside unless I absolutely must. Not even just to get water from the lake. He could be waiting in the shadows to take my life. I'm not safe here anymore. I shouldn't have said anything about my powers. They've only ever brought me trouble. I should probably find somewhere else to live. But where? How far could I even go on my own? He could be out there waiting for me to open the door. I would need help. Don't be a fool. No one's going to help me. The boy barely even wants to talk to me anymore. All I wanted was a quiet life. Huh. Is it him? Did he return? Calm yourself. He knocks harder than that. It's not him. Who's there? It's me. His sister needs more of my blood. I'm not here about Nellie today. I'm sorry for being so distant lately. What? I want to talk things over. He finally reconsidered. If he can treat me like a friend again. Then maybe I could ask him. I want to talk to you too.
I opened the door without a second thought. I let my guard drop, because in my mind, the flaxen-haired boy briefly took the place of the slave man from the brothel. The man who saved me from the terrible lord offered me his hand, guided me into the light, and here he was again to set me free, to take me away from this place, take me somewhere new. He had pulled me out of the darkest depths of despair, and here he was again, ready to offer me his hand. A glimmer of hope to cast away the shadows. So I reached out to take it, and my arm went tumbling to the ground. My hope following not far behind.
My arm!
I'm not gonna scream. There's people sleeping. Some days I wish I could try and be super vocal. But I also know I'm not a great voice actor, so I probably couldn't do a good job. But man. This isn't real, it makes no sense. Take it. That's your share. Yeah. Take it. That's your share.
should last you long enough.
What do you mean, take it? What do you mean? My arm? Why are you taking? How could you betray me like this? How could I open the door? You said you wanted to talk. The man doing here. What are you bringing here? How could you do this to me? When he mentioned everything is going to be coming back and asking me for help. I think we would have trusted you. I believed in you. I opened the door for you because I wanted to talk to you. I trusted you. I trusted you. I thought you were a good person, a nice man, a nice man. I would have given you your sister as much blood as you needed if you had asked. I would have come to you. If you didn't have to come, I wouldn't have had help. Whatever would have happened. It would have. Why would I tell you? How? Why? Tell me. How could you do something so terrible, so cruel? You wouldn't. I wouldn't want you to. You wouldn't tell me. Tell me. You wouldn't do this to me. You wouldn't do this to me.
That's... wow. It's literally here.
Oh. Nothing personal. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church. She needs the money. I needed some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. So the Lord made me an offer.
The Lord? Why him again?
If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a whole new church for her. So don't take it personally. You get to be the sacrifice. To keep her church from collapsing. To keep her world from collapsing. So don't take it personally, witch.
Cheers! A saint's blood and good fortune to all! You're a damned witch wearing a saint's skin.
No, I am not a witch. After cutting off my left arm, the strange-looking man stuffed me into a sack and tied me up and threw me over his shoulder, carried me away. Somewhere while he was walking, he muttered over his shoulder, explaining where we were going. Apparently a new church run by someone called the Saintess, and she was going to give my blood to patrons of the church, saying it was some kind of miracle elixir. But what was the nameless nun doing calling herself a saintess when I was the real saint? And why did I have to be the witch sacrificed for her sake? It didn't make any sense. And most of all, why was the Lord involved? Why did that vicious, cruel, horrible, miserable man have to come back into my life? Why couldn't he just leave me alone? Was that really so hard? Why? He was already had his way with me in his terrible banquets and his blood sabbats. Already did what he'd need with more of my blood. Hadn't he already had enough? Didn't he find out how I had real power so that he decided to come back for more? Was that it? He could have just called me the Saintess instead of her. He didn't have to make me into a witch. Oh, it's because of my face, isn't it? He wanted a pretty face to put on his brand new church, not an ugly scarred face like mine. She's all that's... But that's all, she's just pretty. I can perform miracles, but I'm here with my arm cut off, stuffed in a bag, and even slaves are treated better than this. All I wanted was a quiet life, but I had this power, so and I just wanted to use it to help, that's all. Oh, Father, your trials are too great. I cannot bear it any. I wasn't born to spend my whole life suffering.
About time. There's your witch. Tell me you didn't harm her, dog. I smell blood. You only instructed me not to kill her. Mistakes were made, limbs were lost. I cleaned up all the blood I got on me. No one will suspect anything. And you were able to immediately recognize it as the smell of blood says quite a bit, my lord. You have killed before, haven't you?
Enough yapping. She is alive, yes?
Of course.
So yeah, they're just blurry to her. No tears. Oh, that's a good girl. It simply wouldn't be the same if you cried and blubbered like a lowly slave or a whore. Dignified and saintly. That's what I need you to be. Ha ha ha. That was Berner. Oh yeah, I think it's even Berner's shape here. Welcome, witch. You'll be giving your blood to all the right people now, not only me.
Is that you?
Oh, do you remember me? What an honor. A truly splendid honor.
How could I ever forget? How could I ever forget? All the pain and humiliation you put me through. How could I ever forget the blood sabbath you loved to hold? Haven't you had enough? You haven't had enough, have you? Leaving scars in every inch of my body wasn't enough for you? You haven't had your fill of my blood? I'm thrilled to know the great saint remembers the lavish parties I threw for her. I take it they left quite an impression then. You're the man who bound me, cut me up, called me a witch, and then tried to kill me. I haven't forgotten you, even for a moment. That's splendid to hear. I'm sure you tried so very hard to cast my memory aside. But you never could you? And you know what that means. That the scars I left all over you run deeper than anything else you've ever experienced. Ha! Look at that face, so twisted and hideous. I bet you loathe me. That you'll never be able to forgive me. I don't care how much my father preaches forgiveness. It's the only thing you'll never get from me. I despise you with all my soul. I revile you with every fiber of my being. For every scar you gave me, I give you a lifetime of hatred. Never, you will never have my forgiveness. This man, the Lord, he destroyed me, mind and body. This man ruined my life.
I see. I keep thinking we're gonna see like the witch starting to actually appear. I see. So I'm the one who ruined your life. But why should that concern me? Your words are as insignificant as the chirping of a dying robin. Screams and shout until your throat goes sore.
It doesn't change anything. We lock the witch up and proceed as planned.
Oh, Father, God of heaven and earth, my life has become nothing, shattered and empty.
I'm gonna get the walking, clopping sounds to stop. Oh, good. There, stop. Forgive me. I'm gonna end here because that's a lot, and we're transitioning into Jacopo again, and I kind of need I want a break, if that makes sense. I know it's a shorter episode, but a lot happened, and it's painful to be a part of again. My throat's also kind of hurting, so that's another reason. Doing a lot of the higher pitched voices all at once always takes a bit of a toll. It doesn't help that it's emotionally taxing as well. But we know what's coming. The organization of the church, the donations and the blood, and eventually the harvest festival, or the festival, whatever it was, where it all spirals out of control. And then the question, is that where this game ends? Or do we get to see some of the mansion too? I don't know. It's a lot, though. It's a lot. Anyway, thank you guys for being here today. Thank you for your patience and, dealing with a short but intense episode. It's a lot. I hope we can all be sensitive to the pains of others. A lot of good could have been done if people had been more empathetic. I mean, you can slowly see the logic behind how it all happened, That's the beauty of the story. It's so well thought out. And, you can't even come into this and say that any one person may be the beast, but he's the closest. But you can't even say they're all faultless. You also can't say they're all good, or have good even. But you can see their humanity, and it sucks because you can't, even understanding how terrible it all was, when you have the whole picture, you can't hate them. And that's what the full story was all about, was eventually the ending was revealing to Morgana the true stories and giving her the return of that tiny bit of her humanity that she refused to let go of despite her claims. That was what ultimately ended the pain and the suffering of the mansion. But we'll have to figure that out next time. So thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for joining me, for being a part of this story and continuation of it. It's weird saying I don't look forward to the next part. I do, because I do want to continue the story, but I also just need a break. So I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Hope you think a lot on things that are going on. Hopefully your lives are going okay. Thank you especially to the patrons who help believe in me. Also keep in mind we're doing a rap party for Mamiya on Friday. So tune into that live if you want to ask me direct questions. Otherwise, I recommend you wrap up that story with me. It's really engaging and interesting. Hopefully it's something you can continue to share with me and that we can have a good conversation about it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with me and letting me share mine with you. And until the next video, watch me up, see me next. I'll see you there.